Hi, my name is Jacy Nicholson, and this is my video presentation on 3 techniques from Teach Like a Champion. When I was watching these videos, it made me think back to my past class as well as thinking about my future class in August. This past year, I was a preschool teacher, and I thought about all the techniques that we have learned about this year and this semester, and how I could have used them last year with my preschoolers. They're young, but they are so easily molded, and I feel like I could have done a lot better with them. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adored them, and I love them so much, but I could have done better. So when I think about my future class, it makes me really excited to try all of these techniques that I've learned this semester, and it really makes me excited to try these 3. My favorite was the affirmative checking. I really liked how she used a sticky note. In a way, it reminded me of an exit ticket as well as data tracking. And so I speak about this later in the presentation, but that one was definitely my favorite. From the standardizing the format video, my key learnings from the clip were that when we standardize worksheets, we're able to record data faster, and I also learned a great way to address incorrect answers in a positive and warm way. And then I liked how he modeled it, how Megan modeled it, and not just said it was incorrect, but she told them how to get it right. And I really like that. One of the main ways that this information impacted my thinking was that I feel like I'll definitely use the standardized format throughout the years. I feel like it's a lot better for older elementary kids because, yes, you do data tracking in younger grades, but data tracking really, really matters in older elementary. And you do a lot more things where they're more independent because they are older. And so I feel like some of the ways that when we standardize the format, so if we fold the paper in half and we have them write all of their answers on one side, like with math, I feel like that's a great way to see, like when you're just walking around, you can see if they have the answer or if there's a miscommunication in their thought process. But I really feel like standardizing the format is really good. And it's also a great way for when we're circulating around the room, you can see progress, and you don't have to flip through people's work or the students' work, and so you're not going to stop their progress. What information will you take with you? So, as I said, I will definitely standardize the formats throughout my years of teaching, especially if I ever go to older elementary. I feel like this is a great way to record data, and then all of the answers are in the same place for everyone, and the students know what to expect. And if they ever have any questions, it's easy for me to just go over, look through their answers, and flip through. Well, not necessarily flip through, but they're all in the same place, so I don't ever have to think about where a student's work is. In the video, I really liked how when the students weren't understanding completely, I've said this, but she retaught it, rescripted it to where like they would understand it in a different way. And she didn't flat out tell them that they were wrong. And like that means a lot to a student. They really, really want a teacher who is warm and who's positive in all that they do, and they want to feel like they're getting it right. I really feel like that goes a really long way with them. In the text, it also talks about another benefit was the parallel process, and this is when you can be checking for understanding while students are working. So as I said, when you're circulating around and all of the answers are in one spot, it's easier to check your students' answers. And then I've said this too, but the text also mentioned that when we standardize the format, it allows us to look at their work without stopping their progress or flipping through and asking them, where's this answer? If you have it in a format for the whole class, you know where everyone's answer is for any given assignment. Some personal and professional reflections. Personally, I feel like how she handled the questions in certain situations really encouraged the students, and she let them have a complete answer. Like she, um, okay. So when she asked for the definition of disposition, she let the students really think about their answers. So she had them, when they all raised their hands, she told them to write it down. And so I really like this because I feel like it doesn't influence other students' answers, and so they're able to think on their own for what the teacher is wanting. But I really like that. Professionally, I've said this, but I like how she retaught the example on how to use the word disposition. And she didn't just tell them that they are wrong, but she explained how to get it right. And then I also liked how when she was going around and she saw there was like a miscommunication about the word disposition, everyone was talking about the positive qualities. She mentioned that it can be a neutral word. It's not always positive. There can be a negative disposition. And then I've already said this, but how she didn't take a verbal answer on the question about having a cranky disposition by lunch. She encouraged them to write it down. And as I said, I feel like this is a great way for students to kind of think on their own and not let other peers impact their answer. For the affirmative checking, I really liked how she used the sticky notes as exit tickets, and it was also a great way to track data. She very warmly and very sweetly told a student when they did a different problem than what she had on the board. She said, that's great, you did your own problem, but I need you to do this one. And I really liked it, and it really made me think about how I can address my students next year. And I also liked how she used independent practice as a privilege or reward. So when we think about independent work, our students don't typically get excited, but she made it in a way that they want to do it. They want to be able to do their independent work. And so they really take their time and they do what she asks them to do. It gave me ideas on how to recognize right and wrong answers. I am a people pleaser. I love to make people happy, and I know I can't always do that, but I don't ever want to hurt a student's feelings. And so she just helped me realize like how I could say, you have the wrong answer, let's try it again. And I really like that. I love that, as I stated, I love that she used the sticky notes. This was by far my favorite, because where it can track data, it can also be an exit ticket for them to be able to go on and do independent work. And it's just a really interesting way to get students to focus and slow down on their work instead of rushing through it just to finish it, because we know students do that. In the text, it also talked about student-driven affirmative checking, which is really great, especially it's a great tool, and it allows us to be aware of where our students are academically, and it allows us to see the progress that our students are making. But it also lets our students see where they're at, and it's not a shock to them when they get a bad grade on something or they don't do as well as they would like. The student-driven affirmative checking, it doesn't have to be done by the teacher, so this also frees up time for us. We can give our students a key and they can check their answers, or we can also do it in partners and have them check each other's answers. And I feel like this is a great way to encourage constructive criticism, or when a student doesn't understand it in a way that we're teaching it, maybe another student does, and they can explain it in a different way, and this really just helps with the learning process, and this helps students realize, like, we're on the same team, we don't have to compete, let's help each other. My personal reflection was I really, really liked how she used the ticket method for students in order for them to start their independent work. And like most teachers, when I was in school, they didn't do that. They just gave us independent work, said, here you go, we need to get it done. And they didn't make it in a fun way and made it seem like a privilege. And I will definitely, absolutely be using this method in my classroom because it's just a great way to track data. It's a fun way to get the students engaged. And you can use it for so many subjects. She used it for math, and you can use it for math. You can use it for literacy. You can use it for all different subjects. And it's great. It's versatile. And I loved it. Professionally, I love that she makes her data tracking and her exit ticket. I really feel like this would work with lower elementary because they tend to fly through their work, and some of them really, really need the practice. And so when we do something like this, it really helps them slow down, and it really helps us be able to see where they're at. She also made her signals the same for right and wrong answers, and as I said, I really like that because she allowed students, she acted with the students that it's as normal to fail as it is to succeed. And I feel like sometimes students are ingrained to think that failing is not okay, and it's life, like it happens. And so I really like how she made getting something wrong as normal as getting it right, and she made it sound the exact same. And then the last one, he was calm when students did not want to answer. He was persistent in his encouragement, and that I really like that. He set the foundation for a positive environment in his classroom, and he let his students encourage one another. So when they would get their hint right, he would have them snap for them. And I just really liked how he conducted his classroom and all of the positivity that he had in it. It made me realize that sometimes we might get annoyed with our students who don't want to answer because we know that they know the answer. But sometimes I was one of these kids. I never wanted to answer because I was shy. And I need to realize that sometimes kids don't want to answer because they're shy, but at the same time, more than likely they know the answer, and I want them to at least give it a try, and there's no reason not to try. And if we set a positive example and we open our classroom up for a culture of positivity, then I feel like all it can do is encourage our students. So as I stated, I love how he created a positive culture in his classroom, and that will always be my goal. Because when you build positive interactions in your classroom, they often overflow into just regular life for the students, and so I feel like it will build a positive culture in the classroom, and I really like that, and that's what I want. And it can only set our students up for success. So when we don't let them opt out, they are encouraged to answer and encouraged to give it a try, and that can help them in later elementary years. According to the text, the no opt-out technique gives students the responsibility for their learning. It also states that students have normalized failure, and we don't really want that. We want them to know that failure is okay. It happens, it's life. But the no opt-out technique, it also honors and validates students who don't know the answer by allowing them to help their peers in a positive way. So when I go back to his snapping, and when they gave a hint and they got it right and they would snap, I really, really like that, and I feel like that created a positive culture in the classroom that they can take over into other parts of their lives, like when they're on the playground. Like, they're less likely to bully each other if they have a positive, cultured classroom. Um, Personally, I love that we can create a positive environment in our classroom. It just really depends on how we address situations, and um, how it's presented to us. Um, and also, we are the student's example. We could be the only positive light that they see in all day. We don't know what goes on at home, and if we can create a positive culture in our students and in the culture of our classroom, I feel like it can just trickle over into the rest of their life. Um, Professionally, I really liked how he had the students snap for each other when they were giving hints. Um, this encouraged students to not opt out of answering the questions, because it never hurts to try. And even if you get it wrong, if you do it in a positive way, um, it lets students know that it's okay to not get the answer right all the time, as long as you try. And then I also liked how he was calm, and he was never annoyed that the students did not want to answer the questions. He would convey the message that it's okay to be wrong, but it's not okay to not try. If we just try, more than likely the students will surprise themselves, because if they don't raise their hand, they feel like they don't know. But if we call on them even when they don't have their hand raised, they can surprise themselves, and they get it right. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and these are the 3 techniques that I learned from Teach Like a Champion.